The rain in Oakhaven does not wash the world clean. It is a thick, freezing sleet that tastes of salt and iron, turning the dirt of the market square into a slurry of mud and animal waste. It clings to everything. It clings to the wooden platform where the girl stands. Her name is Elara. But to the men milling below, wrapped in their furs and greed, she is just lot 17. She stands barefoot on the splintered wood. The wind whips through the tattered remains of a white dress that hangs from her skeletal frame like a burial shroud. It is stained with the mud of the road and the dried blood of a life she no longer remembers. She shivers. A violent, uncontrollable rattle of bones against skin. But she keeps her chin high. Inside, she is screaming. Inside, she is a storm of terror. But she locks that away. She has learned that tears are a currency these men enjoy spending. And she refuses to pay them. She has given up on living. That hope died when the raiders burned her village, but she has not given up on her pride. She will not cry. Not for them. The auctioneer steps forward. He is a man who smells of stale ale and onions. His hand, rough and callous, clamps around her upper arm, yanking her toward the edge of the platform. "Look at this one," he bellows, his voice cutting through the drumming rain. Young, fresh, certified intact by the sanctum. He grabs her jaw, forcing her face to the light, squeezing until her teeth grind together. "Good teeth," he shouts, slapping her cheek lightly, degradingly. "Wide hips, strong bones, excellent for breeding." The words hang in the freezing air. Breeding, not a servant, not a laborer, a body to be used until it breaks. Elara stares at her own feet. She watches her shadow tremble on the wet planks. A ripple of laughter moves through the crowd. She looks half dead already, a voice shouts from the back. "Skin and bones. She's a quiet one." The auctioneer insists, a note of desperation creeping in. "Won't give you no trouble. Silence is a virtue." Silence. She is silent because screaming never helped. She is silent because they beat the fight out of her weeks ago. Start the bidding at 200 silver. Silence. Just the rain. 100, the auctioneer tries. A man steps forward from the muck. He is older, with a face like cracked leather and eyes that hold nothing but a starving, cruel hunger. He looks at Elara, not as a person, but as a piece of meat on a hook. 50. The man rasps. "And I'm doing you a favor." She's practically a corpse. Elara's blood turns to ice. 50 silver. The price of a good saddle. That is what her life is worth. Sold to the highest bidder if no one the auctioneer begins. His shoulders slumping. But then, the world stops. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts as a whisper. A ripple of unease spreading through the back of the crowd. The horses tethered nearby begin to whinny and stomp, rolling their eyes in terror. The rain seems to fall harder, colder. Then, the silence hits. A heavy, suffocating pressure that makes Elara's chest tight. The crowd parts. They don't just move, they scramble, bodies dropping to their knees, faces pressed into the mud, dividing like water before a blade. And he walks through. He moves like a shadow given form. He is massive, towering over the kneeling crowd. He wears armor of black steel that seems to swallow the dim light. No cloak, just the dark metal and the rain slicking his broad shoulders. Vorian, the Alpha King of Ironhold, the Butcher of the North. Elara has heard the stories. Everyone has. They say he has ice in his veins. They say he feels nothing. He stops at the base of the wooden platform. He looks up. His face is carved from granite. Harsh angles and brutal lines. But it is his eyes that stop Elara's heart. They are the color of molten amber, burning with an intensity that feels like a physical blow. They are not the eyes of a man. They are the eyes of a predator who has found prey. My lord. The older merchant stammers. his arrogance vanishing. He scrambles back, nearly tripping over his own feet. I bid 50 silver. Vorian ignores him. He doesn't even look at the merchant. His gaze is locked on Elara. He studies the torn dress, the bruises blooming on her pale skin, the silver collar around her neck. His expression doesn't change. It is a mask of terrifying neutrality. 50 silver, Vorian says. His voice is a low rumble, vibrating through the wooden planks, vibrating through Elara's very bones. It sounds like thunder trapped in a canyon. 50 silver, the merchant repeats. Trembling, 1,000 gold. The words fall like stones into a still pond. The auctioneer gasps. The merchant chokes on air. 1,000 gold. It is a fortune. It is a kingdom's ransom. It is madness, my king. The auctioneer squeaks, his eyes bulging. Surely. For her, do you question me? Vorian asks softly. No, never. My king, she is yours. Of course. She is yours. Vorian steps onto the platform. The wood groans under his weight. Suddenly, the space feels impossibly small. He towers over her. Elara has to crane her neck to look at him. But she refuses to look away. If she is going to die, she will die looking the monster in the eye. He reaches out. Elara flinches, bracing for a blow. She waits for the pain, but it doesn't come. His hand, large enough to crush her skull, stops. He removes his own heavy cloak in one fluid motion and swings it around her shoulders. The fabric is heavy, lined with fur, and instantly warm. It smells of him, pine, steel, rain, and something wild. Move. He commands the guards holding her chains. They scramble to unlock her, their hands shaking so badly they drop the keys. When the shackles fall, Elara sways, her legs, weakened by weeks of starvation, to finally give out. She falls forward. Strong hands catch her before she hits the ground. Vorian catches her. He steadies her with a grip that is iron-hard but shockingly secure. He doesn't drag her. He scoops her up into his arms as if she weighs nothing more than a ghost. He carries her down the steps, past the stunned auctioneer, past the terrified merchant, and toward a massive black warhorse waiting in the mud. Up, he grunts, lifting her onto the saddle. He swings up behind her, and suddenly, she is trapped. The trope of forced proximity is no longer a story, it is her reality. His armored chest is a solid wall against her back. His thighs bracket hers. His arms come around her to grip the reins, effectively caging her in steel and heat. She should be terrified. She is terrified. Every instinct screams that she is sitting in the lap of death itself. But the warmth radiating from him is intoxicating. After weeks of freezing cages and cold stone, the heat of his body seeps into her frozen skin. He snaps the reins. The horse surges forward, thundering out of the market square, leaving the mud and the misery behind. They ride in silence for minutes, the wind rushing past them. Elara grips the pommel of the saddle, her knuckles white. She can feel the slow beat of his heart against her spine. Finally, the question bursts out of her. She cannot stop it. Why? She whispers, her voice cracked from disuse. Vorian doesn't look down. He keeps his eyes on the horizon, on the dark peaks of the Ironhold Mountains rising in the distance. Why? What? He rumbles. Why did you buy me? Why? That much. For a long moment, she thinks he won't answer. She thinks he will strike her for speaking without permission, but then his arm tightens slightly around her waist, not to hurt, but to steady her against the motion of the horse. Because, Vorian says, his voice rough, like gravel grinding together. He glances down. Just for a second, his amber eyes burning into the top of her head. Because I looked at that crowd. I saw the broken, The weak. The cowards. He pauses. And the rumble of his voice travels through his chest, directly into hers. And you were the only thing in that wretched pit that looked like it hadn't broken yet. Elara draws a breath, inhaling the scent of rain and steel. And for the first time in months, she feels something other than despair. She feels the terrifying, dangerous spark of hope. They ride on, into the storm, toward the fortress of bone. Ironhold does not look like a castle where people live. It looks like a warning carved into the mountainside. As Vorian's warhorse climbs the winding, treacherous path toward the gates, the fortress rises from the mist like a fang of black stone. It is all sharp angles and towering spires, a monument to a brutality that has survived centuries of winter. The wind here screams. It tears through the pass with a sound like dying wolves, freezing the sweat on your skin before it has a chance to bead. Elara shivers against Vorian's chest. The warmth of his armor is the only thing keeping the cold from stopping her heart. But as they pass under the massive iron portcullis, a different kind of chill settles into her bones. The courtyard is a theater of violence. Even in the sleet, warriors are drilling. There is no laughter, no camaraderie, just the wet thud of wood against flesh, the grunt of exertion, and the metallic tang of blood mixing with the rain. They spar with real weapons. They bleed real blood. Vorian pulls the horse to a halt. He dismounts first, his boots hitting the cobblestones with a heavy, authoritative thud. He reaches up, his hands spanning her waist, and lifts her down. For a split second, her feet dangle in the air, and she is entirely at his mercy, a fragile thing of glass in a world of hammers. He sets her down. But before she can find her balance, a voice cuts through the courtyard like a serrated blade. Nephew. It is a single word, but it carries a weight that makes the nearby guards stiffen. A man approaches from the shadows of the keep. He is tall, with the same broad shoulders as the king. But where Vorian is granite, hard but solid, this man is flint. Sharp, brittle, dangerous. His face is a roadmap of scars, and his eyes are pale, colorless things that seem to see every flaw in the world. This is Malcor, the king's uncle, the architect of Ironhold's cruelty. Vorian does not bow. He does not smile. Malcor. He acknowledges, his voice flat. Malcor's pale gaze slides over Vorian, dismissing the king, and lands directly on Elara. He looks at her the way one might look at a rotted piece of fruit found in a fresh basket. He steps closer, invading her space, sniffing the air. He smells the fear on her. He smells the poverty. I heard a rumor, Malcor says, his voice silky and quiet, that you spent a treasury's ransom in the southern markets, 1,000 gold coins. He circles Elara, his boots scraping on the stone. I expected a weapon. Vorian, I expected a siege engine. Instead, you bring me this. He reaches out, grabbing Elara's chin with painful force, twisting her face to the side. He sees the softness in her jaw, the lack of calluses on her palms. He sees the truth she tries to hide. A healer. Malcor spits the word as if it were a curse. He releases her with a shove that sends her stumbling back against Vorian's chest. You brought a healer to Ironhold. She is strong, Vorian says, his hands coming up to steady her. He does not push her away. She is a parasite, Malcor barks, his voice rising, drawing the eyes of the drilling warriors. We bury the weak here. Nephew, we do not patch them up. Pain is the teacher. Death is the graduation. What use do we have for someone who undoes the lesson? He points a gloved finger at Elara's heart. She is a useless mouth to feed. Throw her to the wolves in the kennel. Let her serve the pack in the only way she can. Elara stops breathing. She feels the vibration of Vorian's chest against her back. She waits for him to agree. This is his uncle. This is the law of the North, but Vorian steps forward. He places himself between Elara and Malcor, blocking his uncle's line of sight. He looms over the older man, his shadow swallowing him. She is not for the wolves. Vorian says, his voice dropping to a lethal growl that makes the hair on Elara's arms stand up. She is mine. Yours, Malcor sneers. Since when do you keep pets? Vorian's hand drops to the hilt of the sword at his hip. It is a subtle movement. But in Ironhold, it is a scream. She is my property. Vorian says, articulating every syllable. She breathes because I allow it. She eats because I provide it. He leans down. His face inches from Malcor's, his amber eyes burning. Touch her, and you lose the hand. It is not a romantic declaration. It is the possessive snarl of a dragon guarding a horde. But to Elara, standing in the freezing rain, it is the first time in her life that belonging to someone feels like a shield instead of a shackle. Malcor stares at his nephew. The tension stretches, thin and taut as a bowstring. Finally, the uncle laughs a dry, joyless sound. Enjoy your toy. King, Malcor whispers, stepping back. But remember, winter kills the flowers first. Weeks bleed into one another. The days in Ironhold are short, gray, and brutal. Elara learns to be invisible. She scrubs the stone floors until her fingers crack and bleed. She carries buckets of freezing water up endless flights of stairs until her shoulders scream. She wears the rough gray wool of a servant, keeping her head down, her eyes on the ground, and her magic locked deep inside her chest. She tries to be nothing. She tries to be the ghost Vorian bought, but she cannot stop seeing. She sees the limping warriors hiding their injuries so they won't be culled. She sees the infected wounds of the kitchen staff. She sees the way the children boys no older than 10 are forced to fight in the mud until they can barely stand. Ironhold is a machine that runs on suffering. The philosophy is etched into every stone. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Vorian is a distant figure. She sees him sometimes, watching from the high balconies, his face a mask of brooding silence. He does not speak to her. He does not summon her. He keeps his distance, as if he knows that stepping too close to her warmth will thaw the ice he has built around his soul. But the distance cannot last. The breaking point comes on a Tuesday. Under a sky the color of a bruise, Elara is crossing the training yard with a basket of linens. The wind is biting, kicking up dust and grit. In the center of the ring, a training master, a man with arms like tree trunks, is drilling a group of young recruits. Among them is a stable boy. He is small, scrawny, perhaps 12 years old. He is fast, but he is tired. Again, the master bellows. The boy lunges. He slips on a patch of ice. It happens in slow motion. The boy falls awkwardly. His leg twists. There is a sickening crack that echoes off the stone walls, the sound of a green branch snapping. The boy screams. It is a high, thin sound of pure agony. He writhes in the mud, clutching his shin. The bone is not just broken, it is shattered. Elara freezes. Her heart hammers against her ribs. The training master does not help him. He does not call for a stretcher. He sighs, a sound of profound annoyance, and walks over to the weeping child, pathetic. The master spits. You fell. In battle. A fall is death. Please. The boy sobs, clutching the master's boot. Please. I can stand. I can. You are broken. The master says coldly. He draws a dagger from his belt. The steel glints in the weak light. A horse with a broken leg is a burden to the herd. We do not burden the pack. He raises the knife. It is the mercy kill, the tradition of Ironhold. To end the suffering of the weak so the strong do not have to carry them. Something inside Elara snaps. The fear that has kept her silent for months evaporates. The instinct to survive is incinerated by a white-hot rage. She drops the linens. She runs. "Stop," she screams. Her voice is not the whisper of a slave. It is the command of a force of nature. She throws herself into the ring, sliding through the mud, placing her body between the master's knife and the boy. The master stumbles back, shocked by the sudden intervention of a gray-clad servant girl. "Move, girl," the master snarls, recovering his balance. "Or I'll gut you along with him." "He is a child," Elara cries, turning to the boy. His face is gray with shock. The jagged end of the bone presses against the skin of his shin. He is waste. The master raises the knife again. Elara doesn't think. She doesn't chant. She simply reaches out. She places her hands on the boy's shattered leg. "Heal." The command rings through her blood. And the power she has suppressed, the power she has hidden since the auction block, explodes. It is not a subtle glow. It is a solar flare. Golden light erupts from her palms. It is blindingly bright, warmer than a hearth fire, smelling of summer and sun-drenched hay. It floods the gray courtyard, casting long, sharp shadows against the walls. Elara gasps as the energy leaves her. She feels the boy's anatomy as if it were her own. She feels the splintered bone shards. She grabs them with her mind and pulls. Snap. Crunch. Knit. The sound is audible, wet, and organic. The boy's scream cuts off abruptly, replaced by a gasp of shock. Under her hands, the bruised, broken flesh glows gold, then fades to pink, then to unblemished skin. In seconds, the leg is whole, perfect, as if it never happened. Elara slumps back, panting, her hands smoking slightly from the discharge of magic. Silence crashes down on the courtyard. It is absolute. The wind seems to stop. The sparring warriors have lowered their weapons. The training master stands frozen, his knife dangling from limp fingers, his mouth agape. They are staring at her, not with awe, with horror. In Ironhold, magic is rare, but healing magic, using power to cheat the test of pain, that is not just a crime. It is a heresy, abomination. The training master whispers. His shock turns rapidly to religious fury. "Witch." The murmur spreads through the watchers. "Witch. Cheater. Poison. Seize her." It is Malcor's voice. He strides into the courtyard from the shadows, his face twisted into a mask of triumphant hatred. Two guards grab Elara by the arms, dragging her up from the mud. She doesn't fight. She is drained, her knees shaking. "You saw it," Malcor shouts to the gathered crowd. "She corrupted the boy. She robbed him of his lesson. She has brought soft, rot-filled magic into the heart of our home." He marches up to Elara, his face inches from hers. "I told him." He hisses. "I told him you were a cancer." He turns to the guards. "Take her head. Here. Now. Let the blood wash the stone clean." The guard draws his sword. Elara closes her eyes. She saved the boy. It was worth it. "Stop." The word is not shouted. It is spoken with a calm, terrifying authority that originates from the balcony above. Every head snaps up. Vorian stands at the stone railing. He is wrapped in his heavy fur cloak, looking down at the scene like a god judging insects. His face is unreadable. "My king," Malcor calls out, gesturing to Elara. "She has broken the first law. She used magic to evade pain. She must die." Vorian descends the stone stairs. His steps are slow, deliberate. Thud. 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 He walks into the center of the ring. He ignores Malcor. He ignores the guards. He walks straight to the boy. "Stand up." Vorian commands. The boy scrambles to his feet. He puts weight on the leg that was shattered 30 seconds ago. He jumps. It is strong, solid. Vorian looks at the leg. Then he turns his amber eyes to Elara. She is shivering, held by the guards, mud staining her knees. She expects death. She expects him to be the monster they all say he is. Vorian walks to her. He signals the guards with a flick of his fingers. Release her. They let go instantly. Elara sways. But she stands her ground. She meets his gaze. I made a choice. She whispers to him. Punish me if you must. But don't tell me I was wrong. Vorian studies her. He sees the fire in her eyes. He sees the defiance that refuses to die. And something in his expression shifts. The granite cracks. Just a fraction. He reaches up to his throat and unclasps the heavy brooch holding his cloak. With a sweep of his arm, he swings the massive fur-lined garment off his shoulders. He steps forward and wraps it around Elara. It engulfs her. It is heavy, smelling of pine and power. It swallows her servant rags, hiding the mud, hiding the poverty. It is a mantle of protection so obvious, so public, that the entire courtyard draws a collective breath. Vorian turns to face his uncle. He turns to face his army. He places a hand on Elara's shoulder covered by his cloak and addresses them. You see weakness. Vorian's voice booms, echoing off the black stones. I see economy. He points to the boy. If she had not acted, that boy would be dead. A dead soldier serves no one. A dead soldier cannot hold a shield. A dead soldier cannot kill for me. He looks at Malcor, his eyes cold and hard. A healed soldier kills for me tomorrow. She stays. Malcor's face turns a blotchy shade of purple. He opens his mouth to argue, to cite tradition, to scream about the old ways. Enough. Vorian says, ending the conversation. Return to your stations. He looks down at Elara. His hand squeezes her shoulder through the thick fur. A brief, secret pressure of reassurance. Come, he says to her. We have work to do. And as he leads her away, wrapped in his colors, under his protection, Elara knows that everything has changed. She is no longer just a slave. She has become something far more dangerous. She has become the king's exception. The summons comes at the witching hour. Ironhold sleeps, or pretends to. The wind still howls against the black stone. A ceaseless, a mournful choir that usually keeps Elara awake, staring at the rough ceiling of her servants' quarters. But tonight, a guard knocks. He does not bark an order. He simply opens the door and nods toward the upper keep. The king, he says. Elara walks through the silent corridors. Her bare feet make no sound on the cold stone. She expects to be led to the war room, or perhaps the dungeon. She expects judgment for the chaos she caused in the training yard. Instead, the guard stops before a heavy oak door at the very pinnacle of the fortress. He opens it, and warmth rich, suffocating warmth spills out into the hallway. She steps inside. The chamber is vast, dominated by a hearth large enough to roast a stag. The fire roars, casting long, dancing shadows against tapestries that depict wolves tearing stags to pieces. But it is not the room that steals the breath from Elara's lungs. It is him. Vorian stands by a narrow window, staring out at the moonlit peaks. For the first time since she met him, he is not the armored titan who terrified the auction block. The black steel is gone. He wears a simple tunic of dark linen, unlaced at the throat. Without the armor, he looks human. He looks exhausted. The tension that usually holds his shoulders square is gone, replaced by a heavy, bone-deep weariness. He looks less like a king and more like a man who has been carrying the sky on his back for too long. Close the door, he says. His voice is low, lacking the command of the drill yard, filled instead with a gravelly rasp. Elara obeys. The heavy latch clicks shut. sealing them in a private world of firelight and shadow. My king, she whispers. Vorian. He corrects, turning to face her. In here. Just Vorian. He gestures to a chair near the fire. She sits on the edge, her hands folded in her lap, acutely aware of him moving to stand before the hearth. The flames paint his face in flickering orange and deep black, highlighting the scars that map his history. You defied centuries of tradition today, he says softly. You made my uncle look weak. You gave hope to soldiers who are taught that hope is a poison. I know, Elara says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Was I wrong? Vorian stares into the fire. My father believed in mercy, he says, the words seemingly pulled from a deep, festering wound. He ruled the eastern valleys. He was a good man. My mother, she was a healer. Like you. She had the sun in her hands. Elara's breath catches. A healer. I was 12 when the raiders came. Vorian continues, his voice going flat and dead. They knew my father wouldn't strike first. They knew he believed in talking, in kindness. They called it weakness. So they burned our home while we slept. He turns to her, and the firelight catches the moisture in his eyes, not tears, but a glassy, frozen pain. I watched them die because they were soft. My uncle found me in the ashes. He took me in. He taught me that mercy is a disease that kills the host. So, I became hard. I built Ironhold into a weapon. I became a monster so terrifying that no one would ever dare touch my pack again. He crosses the space between them. The distance collapses. He kneels before her chair, bringing his face level with hers, and I told myself it was worth it. He whispers, but I am so tired. Elara, I am tired of burying children. I am tired of being the nightmare. He reaches out, his hand, rough with calluses and scarred from 1,000 battles, hovers near her face. He is trembling. Why did you buy me? She asks again. The question that has haunted her since the rain-soaked market. I didn't buy a healer, Vorian says, his thumb grazing her cheekbone. I saw you on that block, broken, starving, but your eyes, you were still burning. I bought you because you looked like hope, and I am starving for it. The air in the room changes. It becomes charged, thick with the scent of pine and smoke and longing. Elara leans into his touch. It is an instinct she cannot fight. She presses her cheek against his rough palm. Mercy isn't weakness, she whispers. It is a strength that doesn't need to scream to be heard. Vorian leans in. His gaze drops to her lips. For a heartbeat. The King of Ironhold is gone. And there is only a man, desperate to be saved. Elara's breath hitches. She wants him. She wants the fire that burns beneath the ice. But then, his expression shudders. The walls come back up. He pulls away, standing abruptly, putting cold distance between them. My uncle won't accept this, he says, his voice hardening back into armor. He sees you as a threat to everything he built. Be careful. Elara. Shadows have teeth in Ironhold. He has retreated. But as Elara leaves the room, glancing back one last time, she sees him watching her. And in his eyes, she sees the one thing more dangerous than hate. She sees devotion. 3 days later, the betrayal arrives not with a shout, but with a toast. The great hall of Ironhold is a cavern of noise. A border skirmish has been won, and the mead flows freely. Warriors pound tables with their tankards, chanting war songs that shake the dust from the rafters. The air smells of roasted meat and unwashed bodies. Elara sits at a small table near the dais, wearing the simple blue gown Vorian provided. She is not a servant tonight, but she is not a queen. She is something undefined, an anomaly that the court watches with wary eyes. Vorian sits at the high table, flanked by his generals. He looks regal, distant, swirling his wine but not drinking it. But Malcor is too quiet. The uncle sits at the end of the table, peeling an apple with a small silver knife. He does not sing. He does not drink. His pale eyes are fixed on the rafters, scanning the darkness above the torches. Elara feels a prickle of ice down her spine. The hair on her arms stands up. She looks at Vorian, trying to catch his eye, trying to warn him without words. And then she sees it. A flash of movement in the shadows above the high table. The glint of metal in the torchlight. It happens in the space between heartbeats. A twang echoes through the hall, the distinct, mechanical snap of a heavy crossbow. The bolt is not aimed at the king. It is aimed at her. Elara freezes. She sees the black fletching spinning toward her chest. She cannot move. She cannot breathe. But Vorian can. He moves with a speed that defies nature. He doesn't shout. He launches himself from the high table. A blur of black tunic and desperate motion. He throws himself across the gap. Thud. The sound is wet and heavy. Elara gasps as Vorian crashes into her, knocking her chair backward. They hit the stone floor in a tangle of limbs. For a second, there is silence. The hall goes deathly quiet. Then, Vorian groans. He rolls off her, his hand clutching his chest. Protruding from his shoulder, buried deep near the neck, is the black crossbow bolt. Vorian Elara scrambles to her knees, her hands hovering over him. Stay down. He wheezes, his teeth gritted. He grips the shaft of the bolt and yanks. With a sickening squelch, he pulls it free. Blood follows dark. Thick blood, but it's wrong. The blood isn't red. It is turning black. Vorian's eyes go wide. He tries to stand, but his legs buckle. He collapses back onto the stone, convulsing. Poison Elara screams. She presses her hands to the wound, summoning her light. But the magic sizzles and dies on contact. Vorian gasps for air, his skin turning a terrifying shade of gray. Dark veins black as ink spiderweb out from the wound, racing up his neck, across his jaw, turning his amber eyes into pools of darkness. Shadowbane. A voice declares. Malcor stands. He has not moved to help. He stands calmly at the high table, wiping his apple knife with a napkin. A tragedy, Malcor says, his voice projecting clearly over the stunned hall. An assassin's bolt meant for the girl. Intercepted by our brave king. He looks down at Vorian, whose breath is coming in ragged, dying rattles. The poison is designed to kill alphas instantly. It shuts down the heart. It rots the blood. He is gone, Malcor announces, looking at the generals, looking at the army. The king is dead. No, Elara screams. She feels Vorian's heart stuttering under her palm. It is faint, erratic, but it is there. He is not dead. He will be in moments, Malcor says coldly. He steps off the dais, walking toward them. Take the body and kill the girl. She is the cause of this chaos. Guards hesitate, looking between the gasping king and the uncle who has always held the leash. Vorian's hand finds Elara's. His grip is weak, trembling. His eyes are losing focus, the darkness swallowing the amber. Run, he whispers, the word bubbling up through blood. Elara. Run, but Elara does not run. She looks at the man who called her hope. She looks at the man who took the death meant for her. She places both hands on his chest. She ignores the guards. She ignores Malcor. She ignores the impossibility of the poison. She closes her eyes and reaches past the fear, past the magic, deep into the very core of her soul. I am not leaving you, she snarls, and the great hall explodes with light. Chaos erupts in the great hall. A cacophony of shouting men and clashing steel. Malcor screams for the guards to kill the girl, to end the witch who defies death itself. The soldiers surge forward, a wave of gray steel and grim intent, but they do not reach her. Kale, the king's second, draws his twin blades. He steps in front of the kneeling Elara and the dying king, his face a mask of loyal fury. He is one man against 20, a lone wolf guarding the Alpha. But he does not flinch. Steel rings against steel as he parries, slashes, and holds the line. He buys them seconds, and seconds are all Elara has. She is blind to the battle raging around her. Her world has narrowed to the man beneath her hands. Vorian is fading. The Shadowbane poison is a living, hateful thing. Elara can feel it under her palms, a cold, oily sludge that is methodically shutting down his organs, snuffing out the fire of his spirit. She pours her golden light into him, but the darkness swallows it whole. It is not enough. Her normal healing, the magic of flesh and bone, is useless against a poison designed to kill a soul. She feels his heart stutter. One beat, a long pause, another beat, weaker than the last. Panic claws at her throat, but she forces it down. There is one way left. It is forbidden. It is dangerous. It is the kind of magic that kills the healer as often as the patient. Soul stitching. Elara takes a breath that tastes of copper and fear. She doesn't just push power into him. She opens the gates of her own life force. She visualizes the barrier between her soul and his, and she tears it down. Take it. She commands silently. Take everything. The sensation is instant and overwhelming. It feels like falling off a cliff. Suddenly, she is not in the great hall. She is drifting in a river of memories, his memories. She sees a small boy hiding in a cupboard, smelling smoke, holding his breath while his mother screams. She feels his terror, absolute and suffocating. She sees a teenager with bloody knuckles, standing over a fallen opponent, forcing himself to feel nothing because feeling means weakness. She sees herself. She sees the auction block through his eyes. But she doesn't see a broken slave. She sees a creature of blinding light standing in the rain. She feels the sudden, terrifying lurch of his heart when he first saw her, not pity, but recognition. She feels the overwhelming urge to protect her, to wrap her in his cloak, to burn the world down if anyone dared to touch her. She feels his love. It is not soft. It is a fortress. It is a desperate, a starving thing that he has hidden behind walls of iron because he was terrified that if he let it out, it would destroy him. Tears stream down Elara's face in the real world. Her skin begins to pale, her own life draining away as she pours it into him. She is fading, becoming transparent, a ghost giving up her tether to keep him anchored. You are worth saving, she whispers, her voice breaking. Vorian, come back. She gives one last push. She pours the entirety of her love, her defiance, and her light into the black void of his chest. The darkness fights. The darkness shrieks. And then, the darkness breaks. A shockwave blasts outward from the dais. It knocks the guards back. It sends Kale stumbling. It rattles the heavy iron chandeliers above. Vorian arches off the stone floor. His eyes snap open. They are no longer just amber. They are burning with a dual flame, the deep, predator amber of the wolf, swirled with the blinding, molten gold of the sun. He draws a breath, a massive, ragged inhale that sounds like a dragon waking from a century of sleep. The black veins on his neck retreat, burned away by the surge of golden power coursing through his blood. The wound on his shoulder knits together in seconds, leaving not even a scar. Vorian rises. He does not scramble. He does not stumble. He levitates to his feet with a fluid, unnatural grace. The air around him shimmers with heat. He radiates power so raw, so dense, that the stone beneath his boots begins to crack. The fighting stops. The guards drop their weapons. The silence that falls over the hall is the silence of a forest when a predator enters the clearing. Vorian looks at his hands. He flexes his fingers, feeling the new magic, her magic intertwined with his own strength. He is supercharged. He is lethal. Slowly, he turns his gaze to the high table. Malcor stands there. The arrogance is gone from the uncle's face, replaced by a primal, shaking terror. He looks at his nephew and realizes he has not just failed to kill a king, he has awakened a god. Vorian. Malcor stammers, holding up a trembling hand. Nephew. Listen to me. It was for the good of the pack. She made you weak. Vorian moves. He doesn't run. He simply is there. He crosses the distance to the dais in a blur of motion too fast for the human eye to track. He stands before his uncle. He does not draw a weapon. He does not need one. Weak, Vorian asks. His voice is calm, but it carries the weight of a mountain. You mistook mercy for weakness, Uncle, just as you mistook cruelty for strength. Malcor screams and lunges, driving a dagger toward Vorian's throat in a final, desperate attempt. Vorian catches the blade. He catches it with his bare hand. The steel bites into his palm, but he doesn't flinch. He squeezes, with a screech of twisting metal. The dagger shatters in his grip. Vorian steps closer, towering over the man who made him a monster. Ironhold was built on bones, Vorian says, his voice echoing through the terrified hall. It was built on fear, and you were its architect. He reaches out, his hand closing around Malcor's throat. But from this day forward, Vorian growls. Ironhold will be ruled by heart. He twists. It is swift. It is final. Malcor falls. A heap of dark robes and wasted ambition. The threat is gone. The reign of terror is over. But Vorian does not celebrate. He spins around, the gold fading from his eyes. Panic replacing the rage. Elara, she is swaying where she kneels. She has given everything. Her skin is the color of parchment. Her lips blue. She tilts sideways. Darkness rushing in to claim her. She does not hit the floor. Vorian catches her. He scoops her up into his arms, crushing her against his chest, burying his face in her hair. Healer. He breathes, his voice shaking. Stay with me. That is a command. Stay with me. And as the darkness takes her, the last thing Elara feels is the frantic, a thundering beat of his heart, a heart she restarted with her own. Winter breaks. It does not yield easily. But eventually, the sun wins. 6 months later, the wind that sweeps through the courtyards of Ironhold is no longer a scream. It is a song. The snow has retreated to the highest peaks, leaving behind a world bursting with aggressive, vibrant green. The change is not just in the land. It is in the stone itself. The training yards are still busy. The warriors of Ironhold still drill, their movements precise and deadly. They are still the most feared army in the north. But now, on the sidelines, there are tents of white canvas. Healers walk among the soldiers. A young recruit trips during a sparring match, earning a bloody gash on his arm. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't cringe, waiting for a beating. He jogs over to a healer, who binds the wound with quick, efficient hands. The soldier thanks her and returns to the fight. Ironhold has learned a new truth. A sword that is cared for lasts longer than one that is left to rust. High above the courtyard, on the balcony of the royal chambers, the wind plays with the hem of a gown made of deep blue silk. Elara leans against the stone railing. She is no longer the skeletal girl on the auction block. Her cheeks are flushed with health, her eyes bright. She watches the training below, a small smile playing on her lips. A heavy, warm presence settles behind her. Arms wrap around her waist, pulling her back against a chest solid as a fortress wall. Vorian rests his chin on the top of her head. He is not wearing armor. He wears a tunic of soft wool. And the lines of exhaustion that once carved his face have softened. They are training well. He rumbles. The vibration traveling through her. They are happy. Elara corrects gently, leaning back into him. Or as happy as wolves can be. Vorian hums a low sound of agreement. He turns her in his arms so that she faces him. His hands cup her face, his thumbs tracing the line of her jaw with a reverence that still makes her breath catch. He studies her face as if he is trying to memorize a map of salvation. The Northern Territory sent an envoy today, he says softly. They want to know how I survived. They want to know the source of the king's new power. What did you tell them? Elara asks. I told them the truth. Vorian whispers. He leans down, his forehead resting against hers. I told them I didn't save myself. I told them. You saved me, Elara smiles. I just reminded you of who you were. No. Vorian pulls back slightly to look into her eyes. The sunlight catches the flecks of gold that now live permanently in his amber gaze, the physical mark of the bond that ties their souls together. You are my mate. Elara, he says. The word hangs in the air, heavy and sacred. My heart, my equal. He kisses her. It is not a desperate, a starving thing anymore. It is a promise. It is a vow sealed in breath and sunlight. As they stand there, the camera pulls back, rising higher and higher above the fortress. It drifts up to the highest spire, where the banner of Ironhold snaps in the spring breeze. The old flag, the black wolf on a field of gray, is gone. In its place flies a new sigil, a silver sword, strong and unbroken, and wrapped around the blade, twisting up from the hilt to the tip, is a vine of golden moonflowers, strength and mercy, steel and softness. Ironhold has been rebuilt, and this time, it will last forever. If this story captured your heart, if you felt the chill of the North and the warmth of the bond, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Which moment broke you? Which moment put you back together? Don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who needs a little magic in their day. And, of course, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to join us here at Moonfire Tales for your next escape into the extraordinary. Until next time, keep the fire burning.